About a week or so ago, we had about a 3-inch snow out here at the farm, and it hung around for 2 or 3 days, just kind of slowly melting. And then when it got down to where I would say probably 2/3 of the snow was gone, a lot of barren places and what have you, I went out for a little walk around the farm, the woods, and what have you, to see what kind of a story was written on the ground. Primarily what kind of deer story was written on the ground. And that's at the close of the season. The season is just closing. And the snow comes. Well, I consider this to be one of the primary, the absolute best times to do a lot of your scouting, because the rut is actually still in a little bit. I mean, it's trailing off, but it's still in. And if you go out there in the summer and things like that and do a lot of scouting, the conditions and what you find in are not as much, or I don't think it's quite as relevant as what you find in later season when the rut is actually on. So to find a buck, a good deer in the early part of the season, it's primarily a feeding thing. I mean, you're looking for good feeding areas. Well, if you're fortunate enough to have a place where bucks feed, come in, that's fine. But like here at the farm, it's not. This is primarily a cattle operation, and there's no food plots or anything like that. But what I do have, the pastures all have a little bit of clover in them, and that's a pretty good deer tractor. So, but food plots or not, whatever. The early season is primarily a feed, a food attracting thing. Whereas later in the season, we're dealing with the rut. And yeah, the peak of the rut is a fairly short period of time, but literally, you will see buck out here at my farm, and I'm sure that's typical of a lot of places. You'll see rutting activity from the bucks all the way through November and December, at least that long. So there is a long period of time in there that the bucks are affected by the rutting urge. They really are. So the best attractor for a buck, in my opinion, at least during most of the rutting period of time, is not food, it's the does. So the does that live here at the farm, I don't harass them or anything else. I like the does. A lot of people, they don't seem to like the does. Well, the bucks do, and I do. So if the bucks like the does, then I'd like to have the does. Because throughout most of the year, pretty much 10 months out of the year, I've got does. Few does hang around, you'll see them on fairly consistent basis, and then they'll come out and they'll have their fawns, and you'll see that, but you rarely ever see a buck out here until the rut starts. Somewhere around maybe even the last of October, 1st of November, all of a sudden bucks start showing up. Haven't seen them all year, but all of a sudden here they are. And from there up until actually first part of January, you see bucks. You see bucks, they just come out. It's does is what they're looking for. Well, the does throughout most of the year, they're after the clover or various other grasses that's in the pastures. That's it. I mean, the clover is their attractant. But the farm, the point is the fields here at the farm are are what attract the does, and the does are what attracts the bucks. And of course, when the bucks come out here, they like to eat this clover and all that stuff too. So you got a two-pronged approach to them as far as I'm concerned. And during the rutting time of the year, I got the does and I got something they like to eat. I got some clover and I got does. So basically, it's the fields. It's the fields around that constitute the farm, the farm fields. They are the primary attractant during most of the deer season. Well, the woods around my woods and the woods around the farm, they're all pretty much the same. They're hardwoods, southern hardwoods. Some of it haven't been timbered in a long time. Some of it has been timbered in the last 20 or so years, and so it's primarily just southern hardwoods, and there's long stretches of it. I mean, it goes for miles back in here. There's literally thousands of acres that goes for miles around, that broken here and there by a little country road or a little bitty farm or something here and there. The way this farm is kind of unique in that it extends back into those woods ways, and there's not much on either side, primarily to the north, but also to the west and to the east. It's a good long ways till you find anything like fields or whatever. To the south, it's not that terribly far, but most of the game that shows up here, most of the deer come in, they coming out of these bigger woods up here. I mean, so anyway, the basic thing is the farm fields are the attractant. Now, how do those deer, how do they come to get here? What routes do they take and all that sort of thing? Well, I already know that, because I've been out here forever. I already know that. But if I didn't already know it, the story written in this ideal conditions, where you got a little bit of snow and a little bit of soft barren ground, it's going to tell you a whole lot. Now, a snow that's lingered for a while, that'll tell you a whole lot too. But the too heavy a snow will cover up a lot of sign, like ground scrapes and what have you. Well, that's why I like to go out when you got some snow and some bare ground, so I can still see the scrapes. I can see where the bucks have made their scrapes and what have you, and I can see their travel patterns. So, a thing that I've heard a lot, and there's a certain amount of truth to it, particularly when I was a young man, getting started in hunting deer, there was not a whole lot, wasn't much out there besides some printed stuff. And I got a few books and what have you here and there, and I was reading those, and I see this advice a lot in those things, and you still see it and hear it today, that how important logging roads are through the woods, that deer will follow logging roads. Well, what I'm going to show you here today that's true of logging roads anywhere, but I'll show you how. I got a logging roads that go up the east side of the farm, and then they turn and they go across the north. So I've got, pretty much two sides of the farm that this one logging road goes across, and I'll show you how the deer react or interact with that logging road, where it's important and where it's not. Now, will deer follow logging roads? Absolutely. They'll follow logging roads if there's a purpose, if they've got a reason. They got to have a reason to follow that road. They just not go out there and say, oh, here's a road going through the woods, I believe I'll just follow it. That's not what they do. They'll follow a logging road if there's a reason. And if there's not a reason, they're not going to follow it. They're not going to follow it just because it's a road. They'll follow it if there is a reason. So I start out here at the house, and I go up along the edge of the woods on the eastern side of the farm, and follow it up ways until the road makes a bend and head out across, up and across the mountain, and head to the west. Now that's a big mountain up here, big mountain. Goes a long ways out through here. Once you pass my farm, the logging roads that goes across, my farm fields are down here, as the logging road goes across it, above it. These are relatively gentle wood. Relatively. Okay? They're not too terribly steep. And the deer are classic stuff. They bed up and they feed down. So they're bedding up here in the big woods. They come down and they cross this logging road that's headed down to my fields. Whether they're coming from the east or the north, they cross. This logging road goes up here and it makes a loop like that. Well, they cross it coming to the feed, down here to the fields. They do not follow that road. They cross it. But on out here, after you pass my farm, this logging road passes my farm and gets out here, that's just big woods that goes for a long, long way. And the lower side of that road is steeper than P darn it. I mean, it's steep and it's rough. But the rest of the mountain on up above it, it's relatively flat, relatively gentle. And it's a lot of good woods out there. Well, the deer, if they want to come to these fields, and they're way out here in the west and north, and they want to come, they know these fields are here, and they want to come out here to these fields. They come down and they hit those logging roads, and they follow that logging road. They follow that logging road till it gets above the field. Then they turn off the logging road and drop down to the fields. So, bunch of this logging road has no deer don't follow it. They cross it because they're coming across it directly to the fields, either from the east or from the north. They're bedding up. They come down, they cross over the logging road, and they hit the fields here. But once this logging road passes the field, and it goes on there, and it goes for a long ways out through here. But the deer that know that these fields are here, that there's does out here using these fields, and they're coming off these big woods out here, they'll hit that logging road and they'll follow it for a good long ways, right in the road, because that's the easiest way out here for them. But once they get right above these fields, they peel off, come right down to the fields. And you're going to see that in this video. And I will stop it from time to time, and I got a little map drawn up here, and I'll kind of show you as we go along what I find and what the deer are doing. So let's get started. What I'm doing, I'm going on a post deer season walk around through the woods just to check the sign, see what's going on, what's been going on. Right after the season, always a good time to go check out your property, go check out your woods, go check out your hunting ground. That's an excellent time to go. There's a deer up there on the top of the hill. Try to keep from disturbing him too much. Let's go see what we can find. Now the story told in the snow as I came up along the edge of the field from my house down here was nothing new, but it did confirm what I already knew. There is an abundance of deer tracks, abundance of sign coming along the edge of the woods, up to right here, about where the spring is. They travel along the edge. Then they turn and come out toward me here, which right here by one of the springs here on the farm. Well, when they get up, like I said, there's a lot of tracks along the edge of the woods till you get up to here. And once you get up to here, there's a break. There's hardly a track along the old road bed. Up there, about as far, whoops, going the wrong way, right up there at the upper end of this little field, where that saddle up there. Then there'll be a lot of sign comes off of that saddle down to the upper end of the field here. Now, and I already know that, but if I didn't already know it, just getting out here and reading the sign, seeing what's there, it'd tell you that. It's good to go around places that you know and familiar with, like this. I'm very familiar with. But if this was a different territory, something I didn't know, I've learned a lot right there. You can learn a lot, particularly, like I said, in new territory, something you don't know, ground you don't know or not that familiar with. Get out there right after the season. If you can find it when you got a little snow or some snow and some barren ground, and you walk around, you can learn a lot. So I suggest you put forth that effort. And most people will be sitting at home watching the ball games or something like that, and this is a prime time to go scouting. You can't beat it. It is the time to go do your scouting. Let's keep it going. Now, what I've done to this point is I've left the house, which was right down in here, and I've crossed over, and I've over the fence down here, and I've gone up and I've hit this section of woods right here, and I've followed this section of woods up to right along in here. Now, what I found, there's only 3 places. They had to come right off this point. This is right next to the house. Right next to the house and straight across from the Quickly. Okay? This is my hunting house. But you see this section of woods here is long. If the deer that want to be out here feeding around, they want to stay close to cover, they'll stay close to cover and they'll come out close to the Quickly, as well as this big long section over here that loops, comes right toward the Quickly. So this point points right at the Quickly. This comes down, and these woods come down. The whole Quickly is well situated. Then this is relatively narrow valley, creek valley, right through here. And you hit big woods on down over in this area. Okay? So this, yeah, I've got some big fields that come up way over here, but for all practical purposes, from right here out to here, these north of the creek meanders along here, the fields north of the creek. This pretty much shows you what it is, okay? So what I've done, if I've checked, they're coming off this point. Right here, there's a little swag that comes out, that leads up to a saddle up here. So they coming down off this saddle. Then here, we have more of a point, pretty much like what you had here. It's a point that they come off. All right, now let me zoom in here just a little bit and show you something. The deer, the trail that come off of this point, Well, right here is the spring. It's got a clump of trees around it, and there's another couple of trees along here. There's a clump of them here and a big walnut out here, and this is the fence that comes down and goes up to these woods, making the corner here. Well, the deer are coming off this corner, coming off this point, because there is a little bit more cover. They will tend to follow right along through here. They'll follow this route because there is a little bit of cover. Now, they'll get out in these big open fields. Yes, they will. But they like to stay close to cover. So they've come off this point, even though this is thin cover. It's not the spring because I've got water all over the farm. The spring is not so important to them. It's the cover. So they'll stay close to this cover. So I know that. Now, along this section of woods here, all the way from the house, all the way from the house up through here, there is an abundance of deer tracks out here in the field. They're actually in this roadbed, but that roadbed is really insignificant. I mean, it's just part of the field. I mean, you can tell it's a road. You can tell it's a roadbed, but it's just a slightly flatter section right along the edge of the woods here. So the deer are not treating this like a logging road, because it's not. It's just part of the field. But they're coming down off the main ridges in 3 places, and they will scatter, feed all up and down along here. You know yourself, the deer like to stay close to cover, so they will be an abundance of tracks all the way up and down along here, as well as out here in the field, but concentrated along the edge. That's just common sense. Then they get up here to the creek, or up here to the spring. They'll come off of here, down through here. So all this section here has an abundance of tracks, but it's not really because it's a logging road. But from this fence right up here, this section of the logging road right here is really more like a logging road because there's trees and what have you. I mean, it's a log. It's definitely a road. But you'll hardly see a track in it from here to here, and that's pretty good ways. It's pretty good ways. But this section of the hillside right here is steep. I mean, it's steep. Sort of a flat ridge coming here, and this is sort of a flat point. But from this point here up, this gets steep quick. And they just do not come off of here. They do not fall. There's a fence right along here. Right along here, there's a fence, and it fences in that road. You will hardly ever see a track in this road. This is steep. There's no reason for them to come off here. But then you get up here to this swag. To this swag right here. There is a trail come down. They cross over and they hit the upper end of this field right here. That's what they're doing. Okay? Now to have a little bit of different perspective. A minute ago I was standing right there near the spring, right there at that clump of trees. But right there, just above that point where the woods where old road makes a circle there, or goes around the bend. That's about where the abundance of deer sign stops. And from there, all the way up the old road bed, alongside that ridge, there's hardly a deer track. Not much movement at all. Till you get to right here, where this swag, this little hollow, comes down off of that saddle in the main ridge up there. A lot of deer come out and come right through right here. See that a lot. From Quigley down there, you can observe that quite a bit. And the Quigley is, you can see right there, that's my shooting house. From there I see deer come out up here in this corner quite frequently. But if I didn't know that, This little walk here in that snow is going to tell me that. In this little bit of snow, don't want real heavy snow, but I want snow that's been on there a day or two, but still got showing a lot of bare ground. So a lot of deer come out here. But follow the old road right up here to it makes it goes up here a ways, and then it turns and goes straight out the ridge here. But right there in that bend, that's where the main swag that goes up to that saddle is. That saddle on the big finger ridge. And that's where they really come off a lot. We'll work our way on up toward there. Now we've seen that the deer utilize this a lot. They move along the roadbed till you get up here to this point and you go out here to the spring. But from this point here up to this first swag right here, which happens to be at the upper end of this field, the upper corner of this field, through this section, like I said, this is steep through here, real steep. There's no, and in this section of the roadbed from here to here, there's hardly ever a track. There's no reason for them to follow that roadbed. The deer right here coming off the hill, hitting this field here, maybe going out along the spring or what have you, but then you come up, you skip all this section here, come up to this first swag. Well, they come down this swag, they want to go over here to the field, so they're not going down here, they're going over it and they're hitting the field directly. Then they may feed along the upper edge of it right here or drift down into here, whatever. The point is, even though this is a distinct logging road, there's hardly ever a track in it. But from here to here, in other words, here's the upper point of the field, here's a swag across coming down off of this main ridge, here's a little saddle, a little swag that they've trailed down, come across the road, hit the field here. The same thing up here, here's the main ridge, the main big saddle up here that the deer drift pretty much down this trail. And they will actually come down this whole swag here, that they will come to this point. Now some of them will cross over and hit this patch of woods and come down here. But most of them hit this section here and they actually follow the road. They actually follow the road till they get right here at the field, then they get off the road and they hit the field. They join these deer, the deer that's come off here and going straight to the field. These come down, hit the road, follow the road to the field. So this section here is just part of the field. So they just meander around, feeding around, lollygagging around all over the place. But from here to here, there's hardly a track at all because they come off the point, they come down this swag. There's nothing here. It's just steep nothing. So they don't hit, even though they want to go to this field, they either go this route, or they come down here, hit the road, follow the road, and hit the field. So you've got almost no deer following this here, even though it's a distinct logging road. They do follow it from here. Why? They've got a purpose. They're wanting to go to this field. So this section of road right here is leading them to this field. That's why they follow it here. They're not following it here because they're coming off here and here. But all these deer coming down here are hitting the road and following it to the field. That's what they're doing. You know, the temperature is just in the 40s. But when you're out here climbing these hills, it don't take much to work up sweat. And I'm already sweating. Got to slow down a little bit. The old road bed comes right up through there, comes right by where I'm standing, makes a left-hand turn, starts working its way out the mountain right here. This is right where that main saddle coming off a main ridge. This is a main ridge. The mountain goes out, comes to an end, forks off about 2 or 3 main ridges. This is one of them. It actually leads right down to the house. But coming down this saddle, through this saddle, and not just right in the saddle, but the area a little bit on either side, they come down through here. They work their way right down there to the very upper end of the field. So I have now scouted out this last section. I've scouted out from the spring here, where this trail comes down off this point. I've scouted out this section. It went on this side of the road. I've scouted all this out. There is no deer tracks, nothing. There's no deer activity in the road or along this side of the ridge right here. There is out here in the field a bit. But when I get up here, I came up here and I went through the wood and I came out on the road bed here. There's a sign coming out of this swag. Trail coming out of this swag, they hit the field and feed off wherever. But then from here I follow the road on up to the bend where it starts heading straight west. This is the main saddle coming down here. So a lot of deer feeding down through this section, coming down through here. They're coming off here, crossing the road straight. Just pretty much going straight across it. These deer coming down out of all this territory up in here. They come down, they hit the road. They actually follow the road down to here. Then they come into the field. So this section of the road looks like this section of the road as far as the road goes. But how are the deer using this whole place? They're coming off this point, down this swag, down this swag. All of them are coming to this field. These deer go straight into it. These deer pretty much go straight to the upper end. All the deer coming in up here come down, hit the road, and follow the road down to here. So right here, yes, they follow the logging road because they have a reason. They're wanting to get to this field. But those are primarily wanting to get this field to feed on the clover and what have you. The bucks, when the rut comes on, they got 2 reasons to come down here. One, they like this clover too, and they will meander around out there and get some of it. The best buck of the year was standing right here that I got. The best buck of the year from the Quickly right here. He was feeding on clover or weeds or whatever. Anyway, he was feeding right in here. But this section, logging road, not used. You actually can see the ground. You know why. Coming down this point, down this way, they're not coming down this nothing looking woods out here. Then from here up, they're using this logging road, and they're using it heavy. But you're going to see that from here way on out, they will not follow this road. They will not follow it. Now this this section of old logging road that goes from down here where the bend in the road is and you go up to the saddle. The road continues on out to the west. And for a long ways, about a mile actually, but on my property it goes for a pretty good ways, but not a mile. But anyway, for about the next, let's say, close to 300 yards, you won't see a whole lot of deer traffic going along the road, walking on the road. You won't see much. Mostly, the deer are crossing the road. They're bedding up in here on this steep kind of it's really pretty thick and steep, a fair amount of rock, a lot of cover. And they bed up in here a lot, up on the ridges. And the fields are down here. So basically there's several places along here that they're coming out of their bedding area, and they're headed down toward the field to feed. That's what they're doing here. You hear, that deer follow old logging roads. Well, they do if they've got a reason to follow those old logging roads. Right here, they don't have a reason. This road parallels the field, and anywhere from maybe 100, 150 yards, 200 yards up above the field. And the road just more or less parallels the field. So they don't spend a lot of time traveling back and forth on it, but they cross it several times, several places, going from the bedding area up here down to the fields to feed down here. So for the next couple hundred yards, or a couple 300 yards, there won't be a lot of sign out here in the road. There'll be crossing sign. Now, I already knew that, but if I didn't already know it, the conditions I got out here today tell me that. A little bit of snow, a little bit of open ground between the two of them. You read it right, they can tell you a lot. Let's go on a ways. Deer don't travel along this road right through this section very much. They have no real reason to. Because this road is parallel the fields down there, which is a prime feeding area, which are down here. And all this steep, thick mountain up here is prime bedding ground. So what they do is they cross this road a lot, going to and from, feeding and bedding ground. But they seldom ever just follow the road. There's no reason. Like I said, if I didn't already know that, what I'm doing today would tell me that. This is not traveling ground. I have not seen the first deer track in this road, going with the road anyway, right now. They cross it, but they don't travel in it very much. A few coyote tracks. They're wandering all over the place. But no deer tracks. Nothing showing that they would follow this road, because they don't. Not right through here. If I didn't already know it, the story the woods are telling me right now would tell me that. Now, as I'm walking along here, you can see the fields down there, 100 yards or so. And the road here just parallels it. And there's not a whole lot to eat here in the middle of the road. So they're just not, there's no reason for them to follow this road right through here. And believe me, they don't. Even though it looks like they should, they don't. You can set you up a stand along here, you're gonna be here a long time before you get shot. Fields are down there. Bedding covers up here. So they cross the road. They don't follow it. Not right through here anyway. But on our here ways, we'll come to a point where they do follow it. And there's a good reason for it. We'll get to that. Right there's a rub right close. I mean right here. Because they crossed the road right there. Right here's one of their crossings. The crossing is right there. Several tracks. And I say they don't follow it, they don't. But they may come out and go a few yards one way or the other, which they have here. There's a few tracks, not many, and one buck rub. But in this swag right here, this little swale, this little point coming off, this is one of the places that they cross the road. Going down to the field down there to feed, coming out and going back up to the bedding areas up in there. Textbook. Bed up and feed down. This deer has stopped right here, pawed around on the ground, digging out a little morsel of something before heading right on down there and bail off to the right to go down to the field. So he's followed, like I said, he's followed this road here for a few yards. Actually stopped to eat a little bit. But no more sign than I see. I'm inclined to believe that it might be a buck. It looks like only one deer has come down through here and done that. And there's a buck rub right down there. So I think this is probably a buck. Be bedding up in here somewhere, most likely. I mean, he could bed up down in there if he's not molested, but fields are down there. Now right here is a section of the road that the deer, a few deer, not many, but some deer are actually following along the road. So what's the story here in the snow, or here on the ground, mixture of snow and bare ground, I mean, almost perfect condition. What's this story telling me? Basically, what it's telling me is that the deer drop off, leave the road, and they're headed down through this little valley, this little swag I call it. It's headed down toward the upper corner of one of the fields. So what they've done, they come up here and they come off. Not along this bank here. There's no place along the bank here where they've come off. But what they do, they come off that point right up there. Come off that point. Come down to the road. Well, the deer that's come off that point that want to go down here to the more easterly of my fields, they're about 30 yards too far up there. So they come off, they hit the road, they make a left, they come out here, then they head off down toward the fields. So they're still coming from bedding and feeding areas, or bedding areas, going toward feeding areas. But they're not taking a direct route. They just come off the ridge up there somewhere, hit that point, make a left, and then a right toward the field. Just read the story that's written on the ground. So now we've added this section of the road here, let me get that out from under there. We've added this section of the road here, where the road's going north, it turns west. We've added this section all the way out to right here, okay? This is a pretty good ways, pretty good, several hundred yards. And then this whole thing, whole section of road out through here, there's no place, even though this is hundreds of yards, there's no place that the deer followed the road. With one, they're bedding up here on this big mountain up here. They're bedding up here in all this heavier cover. They're coming down the mountain, crossing over the road, going straight down to the fields. The fields are directly below all this section here of the mountain, all this section. The fields are straight below it. So the deer are pretty much coming straight line. Now when I say straight line, I don't mean a literal straight line, but they're meandering down toward the field. Pretty much coming a straight line down to the fields. When I got out here, I found one place that they actually follow the road for a very short section right in here. What they've done, they've come off this little point here. And this is quite steep and rough right through here. So they come down here off this little point. Then they make a left and go about 30 yards and then peel off, headed down toward the upper end of this field. That's what they're doing. So they're meandering down here, making a left, stay in the road for a very short section, then drop off to the field. But this whole section of road here, the deer are not using a logging road. So a logging road is important, and a logging road can tell you a lot about the deer movement in your area. So if you find a place where the deer are not using the road, such as through here, and all they're doing is crossing. Find out how come they're not crossing it? I mean, following it. They're just crossing it. Why? Because the does are going to feed. When the rut comes on, the bucks are going to look for the does who've come down here to feed, and the bucks will also eat this choice grasses and stuff. So the bucks have two reasons to come down here. Does primarily, and good feed secondarily. Now, the fact that I rarely ever see a buck in any of these fields until the rut comes on is telling me that the does who are using these fields all year long, the most important thing here is not feed to the bucks, especially during the rut. It's the does. So I like to have as many does as I can hanging around here to draw these bucks out of these deep, deep woods out here into the open. It works. But, so I understand that they don't use this section of road here. I know why. They're crossing it because of this is steep and they're going to this field. This section of road they do use, and I know why. They're still wanting to go to the bucks that come off of this section go straight to the field. The bucks that come down, or the deer that come down off of this section, follow the road to get to this. The road is just an easy route from here to here. They follow it. But this section out through here for hundreds of yards, they don't follow it at all. Because what they're doing is they're going from bedding up here in this high country, up here in this rubber country. They're bedded up here and they're feeding down toward these fields, which are directly below them. The road is just something for them to cross. It's that simple. Now the last 100 yards or so, coming this way, there have been solid deer tracks in the road. Deer tracks all over. Now right here's an area that's got a little snow in it still. And going over here, and there's several deer who've come through here. They've come down out of that hollow up there to the road, and they come down this road bed to right here, what we call Cold Holler. Now the reason what they're doing here, I mean, there's browse and stuff on up here, greenbrier, and a lot of stuff up in here, but if they want to go to the fields, they come down here. If they're coming out this road, they got to come a long ways out this road and then drop off down toward the field. Because my fields are just straight down to the right of that little gap you see right there. So the deer out here have a purpose in following the road. They're on their way down to the fields to feed. That's what they're doing. That one up right over to the west of it, so prevailing winds wouldn't get you. But like I said, going out to this road here about 75, 80 yards, then straight down to the right, that's where the fields start. And that's the number one place that the deer come out on my property. It's in that upper corner, and it's just below that little gap you see there. All right, now come here. You got this goes up here and opens up into a big bowl, big basin. Quite a good sized territory up there in that bowl. And the deer are coming down. A lot of deer are coming down out of that basin, hitting the road, going right on out through there. Okay? I do not see a single deer track that's heading on off down here. But there are deer that'll follow this road bed and come this road bed out to here, right on down that field. So from here, from right here on out for about probably the next 700 or 800 yards, the deer will follow this road. That their object is they are generally headed toward the fields down here. That's what they're doing. Story written on the ground. Now right there to the left, that's the little road bed coming down out of the basin I was talking about. Headed out that road bed toward my fields. Now, out here in this road, it's headed to the west. There's a lot of deer tracks. And they are following the road. They're not dropping off the road. They're following the road. Because if you drop off the road, all they've got is more of the same. If they just want to wander around the woods, they've got plenty of it. Most of these deer here are headed to the fields. They're bedded up out here ways on these hills, these deep woods, and they're headed to the field. So they will naturally walk this woods road because they got a purpose in it. They got a reason to be walking it. They're headed to and from farm fields. And they're all over the place. I'm telling you, I was going to be up here in the woods hunting. Right back there at the junction of that hollow. That's where I'd be sitting down if I wanted to watch road beds. The road bed is busy now. Whereas way back there, it went for a long ways. Not a single, hardly a track following the road. They were merely crossing the road. But now, they follow the road. I'm gonna cut this little trip short today. I've seen enough that confirms what I already knew, but if I didn't know it, and using your head and putting and reading the sign and understanding what's around you, the lay of the land, the topography around you, it'll tell you what the deer are doing. Now out in here, these are woods deer. They're all up here in the woods. It's primarily bedding. Yeah, they feed and browse around up here because this has been cut over in a not too distant past, so there's a lot of food up here too. But if they want to go to the fields, fields are down here. Fields are down there. If you look close, you can see part of it down there, but the fields are down there. So they're coming out of these big woods, and they're hitting this road bed and following it out a ways, and then they start peeling off the road, heading down toward the fields. Then they come back up, hit the road, wander along that way, and then start going back up toward their bedding grounds. So that's what they do. I knew that already, but if I didn't, the story's written right here in the ground. I mean, it's written right here. Out here in the woods, these are not just bedding in this road. They're not just wandering around. They got a purpose. They're hitting this road and going toward that field down there. So this is a trail this section of road right here is definitely a trail that goes from bedding to feeding ground. Be a prime place to watch. And particularly right down there where they come down out of this this big basin that's up in there. It's there. Now I also know, I'm not going to go out there today, I might later on, but I also know that on out this road, starting right along in here and going for, next several hundred yards, you'll start seeing a lot of, it'll flatten out. You'll hit a big flat up here. The road will get flat. And where it hits that flat, you'll start to see a lot of scrapes and rubs in the road. And I'm sure they're there. It's getting a little late, so I'm not going to go on out there today. But I'll come back, hopefully. Hopefully I can show you that, but I guarantee you they're there. There'll be ground scrapes and rubs. So the story on the ground is the same story that's been here every year. Every year. And I know that. I knew that when I come out here. But if I didn't know it, and just looking, seeing all this sign and trying to figure out what are they doing. Back there's a long section, there's no tracks where they're following along the road, there's none. They're crossing it. You go that way for several hundred yards. Then all of a sudden you find an area where they're traveling with the road. Why? Why? It's real simple. Out there where they're just crossing the road, they're bedding directly above the fields. They're coming down and they're just crossing the road. There's no need to follow. But the deer that's out in here, whether they're bedding or feeding or whatever they've been doing, and they want to go to the fields, they're using this old road bed as a thoroughfare. They're walking the road to get out there a good ways, and then they're dropping, peeling off, and going down to the fields. It's exactly what they're doing. So this is a prime feeding to bedding ground type of trail. Because I know where they're going to go feeding. I know they're feeding up or bedding up in here, and they're feeding down there at fall. And I also know that back there ways, there's no need to follow the road because all that section of the old road bed is directly above the fields, the feeding ground. Out here it's not. It's well west of the fields, and there's nothing else. There's no other fields to speak of on out through here for a long ways. So if the deer want to feed the field or feeding the fields, they're coming off this big mountain, and there's hundreds and hundreds of acres back in here. If they want to go to the field, they're working way over here, hitting the old road bed, following the road because it's an easy route till they get just above the fields. Then they're dropping off to the fields. Let's head back to the house. Get something good to drink, to eat. Okie doke. So now, we've worked our way from all the way down here at the house, all the way up north, then hung a left and headed west. And we've covered all this. We know what the story has been, what we've read in the snow on the ground up to this point. Now, this last section, what we've covered was from here with the junction of these. This is another hollow that comes back, and over in here is a huge basin. It's a double, got a mountain range comes through here and another one on up past it with a big basin up in here. Lots of cover, a lot of browse and stuff. So the deer have come down out of this big basin. This old peaceful logging road here, come down out of this big basin. They've hit the main logging road here. Then this road goes for, oh my gosh, long ways that way, long ways. And from this point on, all of this side of the road south of here is super steep. It's almost cliff-like, real steep. And this runs along the edge of it. And the woods to the north of it, they're much more gentle, much more gentle. So you've got this huge basin up in here. And then you've got this thousands of acres of woods, west and north, all back up in this section, way up in here, big woods. So the deer, if these fields are in that deer's home territory, then they know that. They may be up in here feeding or whatever it is they're doing up in here, but any deer that these fields are in their territory, they know they're here. If they want to come down here to feed, they'll come down out of this big basin, hit the logging road here, or they come off all this territory back here. Remember, north and west. They'll come down, hit this road, they will follow the road to here. And at the first opportunity to drop off toward the field, that's exactly what they do. They come here. So, all of this, they're feeding up, they're bedding down. The fields are directly below this whole section of road here. The fields are all directly below this ridge here. They come off this ridge here, or they come off this ridge here. They've bedded up and they're feeding down. They've bedded up and they're feeding down. But when you get to this point, they're all up here. They're still bedded up and feeding down, but they're following the logging road as a convenient way to get from this huge territory up in here to get to these fields. So they're using this section of road. So if you were just to take you up a stand or hunt anywhere along this road, it better be along one of these places. These huge sections out here, there's nothing. There's rarely ever a deer out here. But here, they utilize the road a lot. So set up along this road anywhere or hunt this road. Still hunt along this road. But if I were going to set up, pick me a stand, somewhere other than down here at my Quigley, where I can cover all this, and I'm waiting for them to get out here into the open. But if I was going to go up here in the woods and hunt anywhere along this logging road, there'd be two places, possibly three. Might hunt here or here, or out here. But if I had to choose one, I would definitely take this pot right here, and I'd get right up here on this hill, because you're going to have primarily westerly winds coming this way. So I get right up in here where I could cover this junction, because I've got all the deer that's coming out of this big territory out here and this big basin up here. Be a prime spot right there. So when you're looking, you go out and you find a logging road, and or even if there's not a road there, if you're just going out through the woods and this is your hunting territory, and you're scouting around it to try to figure out the deer movements, and you see where they're moving or how they're moving, try to figure out why. why are the deer moving the way they are? If you can figure out the why, you will much easier be able to figure out the how and the where and that sort of thing. It's the why that's the most important. Why are they following this section of the road and not following this section? Why are they following this section and not this section or this section? They're following the road in two sections here. It's plain. You understand why when you get out here and see it. Why they're following this. Then you understand why they're following the road here. You also understand why they're not following it here and here. So, do your scouting. If you can find a logging road, fine. Follow it a good long ways. See where the deer are using it, where they're not using it, and figure out why they are or are not using it. So a logging road can be a key to understanding the deer movements in your area. But understand why they're using it and why they're not using it. I'm about to come out to the field. I've been down here at the house or at the barn really quickly. I looked up on this section of roadbed right here. I've seen many a deer coming down this little section of road right here to the field. Sure you can see the quigley down there now. Most of the deer that come down this roadbed they don't really cross over into the field right here where you'd think they would. I think the fence is a little high, a little got several strands of wire here. It's a little high. So most of them come right down to here. They do one of two things. The majority of them turn left, go right over there near the corner and jump the fence right there, get into this field. Or they go around this corner right here and come in about 10 yards right down there. That's what they do. That's the roadbed that comes down from the logging road up there on the mountain. Like I say, they don't come through right there very often. They usually turn to the right and come through right over here. It's just a little easier. Go over and you can see all kinds of hair on the fence and stuff where they come through over there. And they come through right there and right there and 3 or 4 places down the hill here. Actually, they come in now this field everywhere. They have 1 million places they come in out here. And speaking of deer coming out into the field, right down there is one right now.
It's heading down toward the house. That knee that I hurt down in Colorado gives me a fit. Getting up and down. It sometimes gives me a darn knee gives me a hard time. I've favored it around here for several months, and now it's weaker than it ought to be and extremely sore. Both got both of them, hips and everything sore. So let's go right down here. Yep, two deer down there. Yeah, one deer has actually spotted me up here, giving me the once over. The other one hadn't. They're not used to seeing something come at them from up here. Not used to. Whoop, where'd they go? Not used to that at all. But this field up here, this corner, actually this whole field, but pretty much the full length of it, but up here at this top, say the top third in particular, they come out here more than anywhere, because it feels only about maybe 35 yards to begin with. It widens out as it goes down, but up here it's kind of narrow, got woods, good cover on all three sides, so that's where they come out a lot right here. I see my good looking woman getting in her car down there. She just hopped in her car. Should be pulling out of there in a second. That's a good looking wall. Yeah, she's waving at me. Yeah. Good looking woman. Yeah. I might as well mosey on down here and scare a little deer off. About to get down off the top of this hill. It's kind of slick where the snow is and has just melted. So I took a fall the other day. Not anxious to take another. These old hills don't get any less steep as the years passed, I'll tell you that. One thing that I keep searching for is I'm trying my best to find a bona fide advantage to getting older. I don't know if I found a single one yet, but I'm an optimist, so I'm going to keep looking. But I think I'm going to call this little scouting expedition a wrap. Let's go to the house. See if we can find something good to drink. I bet we can. Talk to you later.
So now we've established where the deer are moving around my place, around my farm, where they're moving, how they're moving. But we also know why they're moving. We know why. We know why they're traveling the section of road beds, the logging road that they're traveling, and we know why they're not traveling the sections that they're not traveling. So when you're out scouting, do your best. When you find a sign and you're trying to put it all together, you got to find out what's feeding areas, what's bedding areas, and all that stuff, and how they're moving back and forth. But always strive to figure out why. Why are they moving the way they're moving? And if you can figure out why, you can always figure out the rest of it. So, now we know why. Talk soon.